Let's try that again. Good evening, everyone. Hi, I'm Anita Hamilton, and I'm the president of the Morgantown Kingwood branch of the NAACP, and we welcome you tonight to our presentation on Know Your Rights. And we have a wonderful panelists here that are going to go over some topics and discuss some questions to help us as citizens be better prepared as we engage with law enforcement. Our goal here tonight is to empower you with knowledge so that in those moments it can be frightening, it can be intimidating, that you make the right decisions, that you are empowered with knowledge so that you make the right decisions, and most of all, that safety is involved. We're hoping tonight for an open dialogue. We'll have space for the audience to ask questions, so we do want you to feel free to engage our panelists. Now is the time to ask any question that you may have surrounding engaging law enforcement. Hopeful that law enforcement can come and share as well. But our goal here as the NAACP is to empower our people to make a better and conscious decision so that we can have a healthy and safe city, so that we can continue to thrive, continue to grow, and most of all, continue to attract people to come here and make Morgantown their home. The purpose of this event tonight is to educate the public about how the basic Bill of Rights protections apply during encounters with enforcement. We're going to show a video, and we're going to break that video into 3 parts. That video is entitled 10 Rules for Dealing with Police. It is a docudrama produced by Flex Your Rights. Flex Your Rights is an educational nonprofit that believes that citizens should actively shape the relationship between law enforcement and their community. We have a wonderful panel tonight, and I'm going to do a brief introduction of them. Our panelist tonight is Dr. James Nolan. Can you wave at them? Dr. James Nolan is a professor in the Department of Sociology and Anthropology at West Virginia University. His teaching and research for the past 25 years has focused on the topics of crime and social control. Dr. Nolan's research currently focuses on police procedure and police reform. His professional career began as a police officer in Wilmington, Delaware. He is a 1992 graduate of the Federal Bureau of Investigation's National Academy. In 1996, he earned a PhD from Temple University in Philadelphia. His new book is entitled Policing in an Age of Reform, an Agenda for Research and Practice. Let's welcome Dr. James Nolan. Our second panelist is Nick Ward. Nick Ward is a state attorney at the American Civil Liberties Union of West Virginia. As a staff attorney at ACLU West Virginia, Nick focuses on a range of civil rights issues, but has a particular focus on issues related to criminal law reform, policing, and prisoners' rights. Prior to joining the ACLU, Nick was a public defender in the Kanawha County Public Defender's Office in Charleston, West Virginia. Nick is a graduate of the West Virginia University and the American University College of Law. Let's welcome Nick Ward. And our last panelist is Ron Tucker. Attorney Ron Tucker received his undergraduate degree from West Virginia Wesleyan College and his master's degree from West Virginia University School of Business and Economics, and his jurisprudence degree from the WVU College of Law. After law school, Attorney Tucker went to work for the law firm of Preisner and Wilson in Charleston, West Virginia. After Preisner and Wilson, Attorney Tucker set up his own practice in Fairmont, West Virginia, and began a close, long-term working relationship with former Justice of the West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals, Justice Franklin Cleckley. Together they worked on civil rights, criminal, and personal injury cases. Attorney Tucker has received numerous honors and awards, including Certificate of Appreciation for Outstanding and Dedicated Services from the West Virginia NAACP, Concerned Citizens Award from Marion County, West Virginia, Outstanding Alumnus Award from West Virginia Wesleyan College, the Vanguard Legacy Honors, and the Hall of Fame Award from the West Virginia All-Black School Sports and Academic Hall of Fame, and Outstanding Attorney of the Year from the WVU Black Law Students Association. Attorney Tucker has formerly served as chair of the Fairmont State University Board of Governors, Vice President Alumni Association, West Virginia Wesleyan College, President Marion County Bar Association. Attorney Tucker is licensed to practice law in magistrate courts, municipal courts, and circuit courts in the state of West Virginia. He is also licensed to practice law before the West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals and the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. Attorney Tucker is licensed to practice law in magistrate court. I think they put that twice. Yes, they put that twice. All right, let's welcome Attorney Tucker. All right, so we're going to open up with the video, and it will consist of 3 sections. And after each section, the panelists will address some questions at the end of each section. So as you're watching the video, if you see something and you have a question about it, jot it down, because we will give you an opportunity to ask your question so the panelists can engage you and hopefully get an answer to the questions that you may have. So let's watch the first portion of Know Your Rights.
I move like the city, with them skyscrapers stand. I move like the city, with the money rubber band. I move like the city, where everything's fast. I move like the city, and car lights fly. I move like the city, with them skyscrapers stand. I move like the city, with the money rubber band. I move like the city, where everything's fast. I move like the city, and car lights fly. Hey yo, my neighborhood is like a video set. Cameras move slow when the street get wet. Shake 'em up, roll money down, it's a bet. G's on the set, throw it up right to left. I move like the city, so the streets come with me. Back pocket whiskey, keep me all pissy. Street thoughts got a feeling like a seesaw. Up, down, back up, I need to see more. The lean so mean, the gear all clean. Left arm up, steering the machine. Eyes in the rear view, gotta keep a clear view. When that money talk, the block gon' hear you. Ride with a rider, it'll be die. Every ass a movie, the script got drama. So bricks, your boy.
Good evening, my friends. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Billy Murphy, and we're going to talk about how to deal with the police. I've been a judge, but I'm best known as a criminal defense lawyer. I know how the law works, and I know that for many people, the law sometimes doesn't work. But I'm going to show you how to make the law work for you. I see how the choices my clients make have a massive impact on the outcomes of their police encounters. Even if, and especially if, you've done nothing wrong. There are lots of good police out there doing what needs to be done. And I don't need to tell you that there are also few too many cops who don't respect the basic rights of innocent people. But you don't get to choose who you're dealing with. And even the nicest cop will use your mistakes against you. That's precisely why every citizen, every one of you, must possess the tools to confidently assert your rights if you have to. By the show of hands, who's here because either you, a friend, or a family member has been on the business end of a bad police encounter? Then you're in the right place. Who's got a story they want to share with the class? What's your story?
I got hassled by Highway Patrol the other day.
Tell us about that.
When that money talk, the block gon' hear you. Ride with a rider, it'll be die.
I was ready to explode. This was like the 4th time this year I've been pulled over for nothing.
License and registration?
Yeah, I know the drill, man.
Excuse me?
License? Registration.
No need for the attitude there, bro. I'm looking out for your safety and everyone else's on this road.
Whatever, man.
Okay, step out of the vehicle for me. Turn around and put your hands in the air. Turn around and put your hands in the air.
Gosh, man.
Walk forward. Walk forward. Hands on the hood. Hands on the hood of the car. Do it. Spread your legs.
What are you doing, man?
Relax.
I didn't do anything.
Relax.
God, I didn't do anything.
You got a bad attitude. Now, I pulled you over because you were swerving between lanes. That's all. Now, you got a choice here. If you cooperate, you're going to make things a whole lot easier on yourself. Now, what that means is you got to be straight with me. You understand?
Yep.
Here's the deal. You don't speak unless I ask a question. You understand?
Yep.
All right.
That hurts, man. That's too tight.
Relax. You're fine. Now, where are you coming from?
College. I'm coming home from college, man.
You've been having problems with gangs moving guns down this highway. You're not packing any Tech 9s in there, are you?
No, sir.
So you don't mind if I take a look?
Go ahead.
All right, Darren, you just relax. You don't move. All right, stand up. Stand up. Walk back with me. Keep walking. Keep walking. All right, have a seat. Have a seat, Darren. Now cross your legs. Cross your legs!
And when that cop was done roughing me up, he made me sit there like a dog while he ripped up my car. I've got nothing to hide, but that's disrespectful.
All right, you sit tight.
I sat there forever while he hung out in his car.
All right, Darren, stand up. Stand up. Turn around. This is a citation for excessive lane change. You take care of this as soon as possible. Sign that. Sign it. Here's your copy. Get your off my road.
That cop profiled me. It's ridiculous. I go to school. I'm not a gun trafficker.
I know exactly how you feel, man. That's why we're here. It's certainly possible you were profiled, but it's practically impossible to prove that. You never know for sure what's going on in an officer's head. I hate to say it, but from what I hear, it sounds like you broke the first rule of dealing with the police. Always be calm and cool.
Hold up, are you saying that he deserved to get treated like that?
No, what I'm saying is a police encounter is absolutely the worst time and place to vent your frustrations about police. Getting stopped by police is always frustrating and scary, but you could have played it much smarter by being calm and cool. As soon as you opened your mouth, you failed the attitude test.
License and registration?
Yeah, I know the drill, man.
Your attitude only got worse.
Whatever, man.
Don't ever talk back.
Step out of the car.
Don't ever raise your voice. Don't ever use profanity with a police officer.
Turn around and put your hands in the air.
Being hostile with police is stupid and dangerous. You can't win that game on the street where they're the king. Police have a dangerous job. Even the most professional officers might become aggressive if they feel threatened or if their authority is challenged. Always control your words, the tone of your voice, and your body language. If you're visibly scared and angry, it's easy for an officer to get scared and angry too. Things could have turned out way worse than they did.
Now! On your stomach! On your stomach!
Can you think of a better way you could have greeted that officer?
Good evening, officer. How's it going?
That's better. Calm and cool.
Hold on. What's all this polite talk? They don't respect us, so why should we respect them?
For real.
This isn't just about respect, it's about common sense. If you don't check your ego at the door and you let it take control of you during a police encounter, you'll regret it every time. Following the rules doesn't guarantee that the police will respect your rights, but they can keep you from digging yourself into a deeper hole. Let's talk about what your rights are in the first place. This is the Bill of Rights. These are the first 10 amendments that were added to the U.S. Constitution after it was ratified in 1789. These rights are protected under federal law, which means everything we're talking about today applies in all 50 states. There are 3 amendments in particular that protect your rights during police encounters. The 4th Amendment states that the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. The 5th Amendment states that no person shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. During a police encounter, the smartest way to take the 5th is just to keep your mouth shut, because you always have the right to remain silent. We'll talk in a minute about how this works. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. So if the police interrogate or arrest you, asking for a lawyer is a good way to assert your right to remain silent.
Lawyer up.
That's right. Regardless of what you have seen on TV, police don't usually have to read you your rights, even if you're arrested. So it's up to you to make sure that you understand the law and make smart choices. If police flag you down, pull over immediately, turn off your car, and place your hands on the wheel. The police like to see your hands for their own safety, so wait until they request your paperwork before reaching for it. At night, it's also a good idea to turn on the interior light so that the officer can see you're not armed. Darren, do you see any ways you could have handled yourself better?
Good evening, officer. How's it going?
Did you know you were swerving between lanes?
No, officer.
Let me see your license and registration.
Sure. My license. Here's my registration.
Now, Darren, we've had some problems with gangs moving guns down this highway. You're not packing any Tech 9s, are you?
No, sir.
I didn't think so. So you don't mind if I take a look, do you?
Officer, I know you're just doing your job. I don't have any guns or whatever, but I don't consent to searches.
Perfect. Rule number 3. You have the right to refuse searches. This comes directly from the 4th Amendment. For your 4th Amendment protection to legally apply, you must be prepared to clearly state your refusal under pressure. Everyone, repeat after me. I don't consent to searches.
I don't consent to searches.
The officers can't hear you, so say it again.
I don't consent to searches.
One more time.
I don't consent to searches.
You a law student or something?
So if I show that I know the rules, he might think I'm a law student. Or maybe I got big legal connections.
Perhaps. But don't get carried away by saying stuff like,
I know my rights, Get out of my face. I'ma sue you.
never tell the officer you know your rights. Show the officer you know your rights by asserting them calmly.
You seem nervous. Is there anything in this car I need to know about?
No, officer.
All right. Please step out of the vehicle.
Police may legally order you out of your vehicle, so you should comply.
Walk back here with me. Stand right here for me. Now, you got two choices. You can make this better or worse for yourself. Now, if you cooperate, it's going to make things a lot easier on you.
Beware that the police may legally lie to you, so never let false threats or promises trick you into waiving your rights.
Now, if you don't, I'm going to call up a K-9 unit, and those dogs are going to rip apart your car. They're going to find what you're hiding. So what's it going to be?
Refusing a search request is not evidence of guilt and doesn't give the officer the legal right to search or detain you. Don't get tricked. Unless you're detained or arrested, you may terminate the encounter at any time, but don't wait for the officer to dismiss you. Simply ask if you're free to go.
Darren, those dogs are going to rip apart your car, and they're going to find what you're hiding. Like I said, what's it going to be?
Officer, are you detaining me, or am I free to go?
Good. This line can help withdraw you from an encounter. Saying you want to leave establishes that the encounter is not voluntary, which could help you later if you end up in court. Let's practice that line. Everyone repeat after me. Are you detaining me, or am I free to go?
Are you detaining me or am I free to go?
One more time.
Are you detaining me or am I free to go?
All right. You want to play it like that? You want to bump it up to the next level? Fine. You stay right here. Don't go anywhere.
Asserting your rights won't make the police love you, but it might make them extra cautious about violating your rights.
Darren, this is a citation for excessive lane changing. Take care of that as soon as possible.
Thank you, officer.
I understand refusing a search doesn't make me guilty, but if I'm doing nothing wrong, why don't I just let the police search me and get it done with?
You have the right to let police search you. You also have the right to refuse. The choice is yours. But there are some reasons to think carefully about this. The officer isn't your butler. Searches can get real messy. If they damage anything, you might not be compensated because you agreed to the search. Besides, you never know for sure what a careless person, relative, friend, previous owner might have left in your car at some point. If the police find any illegal items after you consent to a search request, you can be arrested even if you had nothing to do with it.
You have the right to
Consenting to a search request automatically makes the search legal in the eyes of the law. And the Fourth Amendment doesn't require officers to tell you about your right to refuse. So if you're pulled over, don't try to figure out whether or not the officer has probable cause to legally search you. You always have the right to refuse searches.
I don't consent to searches.
But they're gonna search us anyway.
Sometimes they will, but saying no isn't just about stopping the search. It might stop the search or it might not.
Cross your legs.
The point is that refusing the search could help you later if you end up in court. If the police search you without consent, your lawyer can challenge that. As your attorney, I'd be much more likely to win your case if you said no to the search.
If I do not consent, when are police allowed to search my car? You mentioned probable cause. What does that mean?
Probable cause means police must have clear facts or evidence to believe you're involved in criminal activity. In other words, an officer's hunch without evidence of illegal activity is not enough to search or arrest you. But it doesn't take much. Most avoidable police searches happen not because police have probable cause. They happen because people get tricked or intimidated into consenting.
So an expired registration isn't probable cause to search my car?
No, it's not. But you still got to be careful. Courts are eager to uphold police searches, so something suspicious about you or your car could be considered probable cause. I'm not the kind of guy to tell you how you should express yourself. Expressing yourself is one thing, but exposing yourself to police by being a public nuisance is ignorant.
Everybody knows who I roll with.
number 6. Don't expose yourself.
All right. That was packed. That was loaded. So for our first question to our panelists, and anyone can answer, can a police officer lawfully command an individual to sit down?
Before I get started saying anything, I want to thank Richard Burks and our moderator here for inviting me to come down. It's been a long time since I've been to Morgantown. Mostly I end up in Morgantown. I'm in court someplace, and I have an opportunity to say hello to people I hadn't seen in quite some time. The great mayor, former mayor, legislator, state of or Morgantown, West Virginia, Charlene Marshall. Please wave, Charlene. And the best legislature Daggone State has ever had. I don't know why she didn't get voted in, Barbara Fleischer. Now, in answer and expounding on the question, what was asked, do the police have the right to force you to sit down? The answer to that is yes. Why? Because it is a method of control. The officer's duty is to control the situation, and forcing you to sit, cross your legs, oftentimes you may be in handcuffs, is controlling the situation.
So my role in this on this panel, I'm not an attorney. I'm not an attorney, but I'm here to provide the police perspective, and I've studied police procedures for a number of years, and so I've asked the other panelists to correct me if I'm wrong in what I tell you. So, but basically, the police are, as Ron says, trying to take control of the situation, and for the protection of the officer and protection of the person. But I think it's important also to know and to say up front is that the police in the United States and therefore in Morgantown are organized around a mandate for crime control through law enforcement. And what this means in a practical sense is that the police, all of us have referred to the police as law enforcement. So the mindset of people in the field is that the police are here to enforce the law. Now, it's different in many other places. In Ireland, for example, the police mandate is the protection of human rights. And so police officers are organized with that mindset to protect human rights. And this is important for this panel because what the judge in the video says is that there are some good officers and some bad officers, and I think that's probably true in every organization. But the reality of it is, unless you know your rights, then the good officers and the bad officer they're going to do the same thing. They're going to use your words against you. They're going to ask you for searches. If you can comply to a search, when maybe they don't have probable cause. And whatever they find, they're going to use it against you because they imagine their role is not making people safe, not developing strong communities, not protecting human rights, but the mandate is crime control through law enforcement. And that'll be that theme will be laced through my comments here, but in this case, what the officer is doing and the perspective that he gives is he comes across as somewhat belligerent, and that's sort of that's the personality or the disposition or the worldview of officers who are trying to enforce the law. And so anyway, I'll end there on this one, but.
Yeah, and I don't have too much to add to that, but thank you everybody for being here today. I'll just add that officers can put you in handcuffs. They can ask you to get out of your vehicle as long as it's based on reasonable suspicion. And in my experience, I think that the panel would probably agree this is usually done under the guise of officer safety. However, the methods used once you're out of the vehicle, having putting somebody in handcuffs, asking them to sit on the ground, cross their feet, that detention can only be temporary. And that's kind of, we argue about that in court on what is reasonable in terms of timing of a detention. But that's just important to know that once you're out of the vehicle, it can only be temporary, and the methods that law enforcement are using need to be reasonable to the situation. So again, it's usually handled in a way that the officer claims that they're putting somebody in handcuffs for officer safety. But again, all of this is, I just want to reiterate that this will be argued over in court. Hopefully the situation doesn't get to that point, but everything that happens once that person is asked to leave the vehicle, everything that the officer does is going to be scrutinized by a defense attorney. But that's really all I have to add to those two questions.
Awesome.
Nick mentioned temporary. You may ask the question, well, what's temporary? It depends on the totality of the circumstances. Temporary to you or I might mean 5 or 10 minutes. Temporary, given the circumstances, may be 30 minutes. It may be longer than 30 minutes. So any judge is going to look at the totality of the circumstances to determine whether it was reasonable to detain you for the length of time that you were detained. Most people will think, well, I was detained for 20 minutes. I must have been under arrest. Not necessarily. It depends on the totality of the circumstance. There may be a ruckus going on over to the side. There may be traffic problems. There may be any number of things. But, you know, you're upset. I got to be someplace in the next 10 minutes. I got to be, you know, I'm on my way to someplace and you're putting me behind. Well, depending on the totality of the circumstances, a 20, 30, 40, 45 minutes or even longer detainment could very well be reasonable. Okay?
And I'll just quickly add here that this might be a good place to remind everyone that, just like in the video, you do have the right to remain silent, and your Miranda rights actually only apply when you're in custody. So when you're asked to be out of the vehicle, custody is essentially anything that's going to limit your liberty. And the way to find out if you're in custody is to politely ask a law enforcement officer, am I free to leave? Usually that's an indication that they might have established reasonable suspicion at that point. But it's always important to assert your right to remain silent. We can get into the question of whether you have to ID yourself a little bit later on. It might be more applicable in the street stop. But yeah, it's always important to just make sure that you invoke your right if you don't wish to speak to police officers, which my advice is don't. So.
To piggyback off of that, what is reasonable suspicion?
Reasonable suspicion, generally, it falls under a very broad category, but reasonable suspicion generally are those things that your 5 senses. What did they see? What did they hear? What did they smell? What did they touch? And so forth. That gives rise to something illegal may be going on. Okay, it's very subjective. But any reviewing body, be it a court or whatever, well, I saw it. I heard it. I touched it. I smelled it. And so forth can give rise to an officer going to the next step. It may place you under arrest. It may be a further detention. It may lead to a search. But that reasonable suspicion category is generally based upon one of the 5 senses which we all have.
From a police perspective, they are generally taught that reasonable suspicion refers to a specific knowledge of a specific crime that occurred. and they suspect that the person who they're stopping is connected in some way to that crime. So in other words, the police can't stop someone in a high crime area, generally say they look like they're up to no good, because they don't really know that a specific crime has occurred. And so generally that's sort of a guidance that police are given.
Just to briefly piggyback off of what Ron said, that's spot on for the definition of reasonable suspicion, and it's hard to define, but the only thing I'll add is that it needs to be based off of facts that law enforcement can articulate, and that comes into play whenever you're in court. You want to make sure that the officer can actually say exactly what he was basing that suspicion on, and if he can't do that, then the detention may be unlawful.
Next question. If your car is stopped by the police and the officer says that he smells marijuana and wants to search the car, how should you respond?
I can try and answer that. I think that if you're stopped by a police officer and they are saying that they smell marijuana in your car, there are different levels of your expectation of privacy. And in a vehicle, you have the least amount of privacy. So if an officer can establish probable cause, they're going to be able to search your vehicle without a warrant. So in that circumstance, the best thing to do is verbalize your non-consent to the search. The way that I've described it to the other panelists is, in my mind, as soon as you are interacting with a police officer, you're building your case. And hopefully it doesn't ever have to get to that point. But you want to be able to verbalize clearly your right to remain silent as well as your non-consent to a search. And as long as you are not consenting, that's going to help you in the long run. The minute you consent, as the gentleman in the video said, your case is sunk. You can't suppress that, whatever is the outcome of the search. So yeah, it's hard to articulate how little privacy you actually do have in your vehicle. And it's sort of like a continuum, and not to get ahead of the video, but you have the most privacy expectation in your home, middle ground is on your person, and then in your vehicle you have the least amount.
The intimidation part comes when a police officer says, well, I smell something funny. Smells like marijuana, smells like pot, smells like something. Then you're really intimidated, because the next thing he's going to say, well, you can either let me search the car or I'll get the drug dogs. What do you do then? Because the officer then has, I smell it, you did not give me the opportunity to search the vehicle, so I have enough suspicion to bring in the drug dogs. Between a rock and a hard place. Quite frankly, it's the old proverbial rock and a hard place, because when you get to that point, he's going to bring in the drug dogs, and you're scared as hell, because it may be your marijuana, it may not be. There may not be anything in the vehicle. There may be, and oh, by the way, every excuse that you're going to throw out, they've heard them before, and they don't listen. It's not my car. It's my roommate's car, college students. It's my uncle's car. It's my aunt's car. My son had this car. They don't care. They don't listen to your excuses. And you go see someone like Nick or myself, you're saying, well, I had a good excuse. No, you didn't. All you did was gave another excuse, because they really don't give a rat's ass. Okay? And they're going to search your car, and if you don't get, by the way, because they are Billy Badass, because they get to carry a badge and a gun, and they are Billy Badass, and they think they're large and in charge. And they are. Unfortunately, they are. Well, Anita was saying something earlier, but it was in the video. I go a step further. In today's world, it's about saving your life. Okay? It's about saving your life. You know, he started off, he said his vehicle had been stopped 4 times and he had just had it. You think Officer Do-Good care about you having been stopped 4 previous times and you got an attitude? No. No. And it's awfully hard. It's awfully hard to contain yourself, particularly when you believe and think that you're right, and you want to assert your rights. I tell people, I tell clients, you got to be really, really careful because in many respects, you're at their mercy. You are absolutely at their mercy. So why piss them off anymore? You know, you want to get angry when you go to court. Get angry when you're talking to your lawyer. But pissing them off at the scene, you're at their mercy.
One more thing to say about this. They covered it very well. But from a police perspective, if an officer walks up to the driver's window and smells a strong odor of marijuana, they are likely to arrest the subject and then search incident to an arrest. Now, whether or not that holds up in court, a lot of times the police don't really care about that, but they have this argument that they have enough probable cause to arrest. And if they don't find anything, then they can unarrest.
I hope you guys are taking notes because they're dropping some good knowledge tonight. Gonna call them our dream team. Dropping some good knowledge tonight. I really appreciate this panel. Last question. During a traffic stop, is a passenger in the vehicle required to provide ID to a police officer?
Generally, in West Virginia, we don't really have any laws that would require somebody to provide identification. However, certain states do have that. In West Virginia, an officer asking for your identification and then refusal to provide that identification can be justification for charging you with an obstruction misdemeanor. Now, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals has said that the reason for your stop in the first place has to be constitutional for that to stick. So it's sort of it's not really a great answer, but the short answer is yes, it's best to give your identification to an officer when they ask. And I don't know if the panelists have anything to add to that.
I will give you a example which took place 3 days ago, Monday. I learned of a situation where there were 3 people in a car and the vehicle was stopped, and it was a female driver, a male co-passenger, and a male in the rear of the vehicle. And the reason for the stop was allegedly speeding. Who knows whether they were or not. However, the officer says to the female, or he believed that she was acting fidgety. Well, guess what? Most people get stopped by the cops unless you are a white male. You're nervous. You're damn right you're nervous. Okay? And so she was fidgety and so forth, which then gave rise to, I think something's going on here illegal, and he asked the passenger for ID. And the passenger did not want to give the ID. So then he asked if he can search the vehicle. They gave him permission to search the vehicle. There was a bag of marijuana in the back seat of the vehicle. Of course, everybody says, it's not mine. It's not mine. It was George. It wasn't mine. I don't know how that got in this car. It's not mine. Now, the individual that contacted me was so upset because he had just gotten paid and had cashed his check and had cash, and they took all his money. Okay? So can they take my money? Well, if they have reason to believe it's drug money incident to some illegal activity, then you got to prove that this was my paycheck, and he brought a copy of the employer having written his paycheck. But as of today, of course, this all happened Monday, as of today, he still doesn't have his money. You know, they're going to come in and see, I got to pay my rent, I got to buy food, I got to do this, that, and the third. But he still doesn't have his money. But did he have reason to stop? Did he have reason to search? Of course, the officers are going to say, yes, he did, and he took his money. Now, the one thing that they didn't do, they could have taken a car. It's called a forfeiture.
The only thing I have to add on this one is that you have to, think in terms of if you're stopped in a car and you're a passenger and they ask for identification, you may know that you didn't do anything and therefore the police officer doesn't have a right to ask for this. But according to, some case law, Terry v. Ohio, the reasonable suspicion, you don't really know what the officer knows. Like the officer may have information that a crime is, this vehicle was involved in a crime and the passengers are also involved in a crime. So they may be asking it a question because they know something that you don't know. And this is why in the video they say, am I being detained? That's one quick check on that, whether or not, because particularly in the era where there's body cameras, because in the era, if you're asking the right questions, am I being detained, am I free to go, those types of things, it gets recorded, and that's important.
So right now we're going to leave space if there's any questions from the audience. We have a microphone in the center aisle. So if you have a question, you could come up and ask related to being stopped in the car. So we'll give a few minutes for those. Just come and stand in line if you have a question.
I read an article quite a while back about the fact that a lot of law enforcement are former military, and that it makes a difference between whether they see themselves as a guardian or a warrior. And a warrior's job is to neutralize combatants. So if you kind of make the assumption that maybe the person who's pulling you over is former military, which they may or may not be, is making yourself seem neutralized, like they were talking about in the video, is that the best way to kind of de-escalate the situation and make sure that you stay safe? Or is that kind of go along with what I was seeing up there in the video?
Yeah, I think Jim probably can speak to this too, but yeah, like a lot of law enforcement are former military, but I think that the rules that they go over in the video are pretty spot on. You want to, they're in control, as unfortunate as it is. You want to be polite, you want to, be aware of your body language, be aware of where your hands are. I think that in the video, he turns on the lights in the vehicle, rolls the window down. If you're a passenger in the vehicle, you also want to be aware of your body language and where your hands are. But yeah, I think that anything you can do to kind of make it known that you're going to comply, up to a certain extent. I mean, I would never say challenge a police officer, but you should assert your rights.
Right.
But again, don't do it in the way in the video where you're rude or you're yelling or using profanity or anything like that. Yeah, does that track for everybody else?
I think this is, first of all, if you look at the scenario, there's a couple different versions of it, and the police, if there's any sort of a review of the actions of the officer would probably be justified because he's basically following the policy of a law enforcement organization, and but that doesn't make it morally right. That doesn't mean it's right in some sort of a larger context. But This is one of the problems I think in any of the reform efforts in policing today, is most times when people make a complaint against the police, it's not necessarily just because they're concealing something or hiding something, but you can see this officer, it just doesn't seem right that what he did, even with the taser. That taser probably would have been justified because the officer feared for his life. So, you know, keeping that in mind will, you know, can actually really help keep you safe.
Let me add this just for a second. It's really difficult. And it's really difficult because if you are a male in a male culture, you are showing some type of vulnerability, and your manhood is being challenged. And you certainly do not want your manhood being challenged. Your parents probably, hopefully, raised you to be a nice, moral, upstanding citizen, and you already feel like you had no reason to stop me in the first place, and I get that. But you actually have to be, if you want to save your daggone life, you're going to be put in a position of vulnerability. You just are, okay? And we're going to keep it real. Now, as a black male, and some white police officer stops me, and, oh, so you're one of those smart kind of niggers, aren't you? Oh, well, we got a place for you. And then it escalates into a situation that's very difficult, and who's going to be on the losing end of that, you know? Get through the situation, hold your breath, wait till it's over, and then challenge it. Don't challenge it at the scene. Don't challenge it at the scene. You're going to lose. Oh, by the way, and this hit me as I drove up. They're talking about probable cause to stop. And I see this all the time. I parked in the parking lot, and the vehicle that was parked next to me, some little sports car, I'm sure it's a college student, I couldn't even see the steering wheel. You know that's a reason to stop you? Because your windows are so dark, the police officer, for his own protection, he can't see anything, whether or not you have a weapon, drugs, or anything else. And if you know anybody, or if it's yourself, there is a state, I forget, I think it's 32% or whatever it is. You best check and see what it is, because all you're doing is driving around a vehicle that says, hey, look at me, hey, stop me. Simply because of that.
Okay.
Can we take another?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, you know, one of the things I tell my students that, you know, everything that we're seeing right now is, it's not new, it's just new to us because of videos and cell phones and all of those things. So, like, you can very easily do everything right, but they can say you are not, right? So can you talk a little bit about, like, the legality of recording all of these things? Because, you know, no matter how well behaved I am, they can say that, you know, like I tell my students, so, you know, like, no matter how well behaved you are, they can say you weren't, right? So, like, what mechanisms can they use to protect themselves other than just their good word, right?
So I think that kind of depends on who is doing the recording. So if you're a third party and you are witnessing what a police interaction, you have the right to record the police, as long as you're not interfering and you're not causing a problem or interfering with the investigation or the arrest, whatever it is, you can record. And there's actually not any Supreme Court precedent for recording police, but it is based on the First Amendment. And several states and circuits have actually found a right to record as long as it's in a public place. And again, you're not obstructing the investigation or whatever it's going on. Now, if you're in a vehicle and you're stopped and you're recording, your interaction with a police officer, that's also perfectly legal up to a certain point. And that is when you get into obstruction. So the officer can actually ask you to put the phone down. And in that situation, the best thing to do is have it keep recording. Put it in the passenger seat, put it on the dash. You may not have the video, but you'll have audio. And it's not grounds for an obstruction charge. So.
Okay, we're gonna go to the next portion of the video in an effort to conserve time.
Mr. Murphy, I appreciate you being here today talking about constitutional rights and all, but in my hood, police don't care about nobody's right. They do whatever they want.
Tell us more.
The other day, I was leaving my building on my way to work.
Ajá, ahorita, yeah. En 30 minutos llego. A las 5 dentro, chequea el schedule. Simón, ahí te caigo. No voy a llegar tarde. Vos pues, ok, va.
You, let me see your hands. Put them on the car. Spread. Where's the dope, man? Come on, give it up.
I ain't got nothing.
Let me see your pockets. Pull them out. Your ID?
Got an ID here.
Run that, please. Let me see your hat. I seen you coming out of there.
Yeah, that's a known drug spot.
It's my home. That's where I live at.
You go to school? Or you working?
I work at a restaurant. That's where I'm going.
He's clean. Get your stuff.
Thank you for your cooperation. You stay out of trouble.
This is not the first time. It probably ain't the last. That's how they do around here.
I'm not surprised. In cities across the country, these stop and frisks are occurring at record rates, especially in low-income communities of color. They happen so frequently they seem perfectly normal to you.
Yeah, that's how they do.
This might be common, but that doesn't make it right. In fact, it sounds like those cops searched you illegally.
Let me see your hands. Put them on the car. Spread them.
If police have reasonable suspicion to believe you're involved in a crime, they're legally allowed to detain you for a short period of time. Reasonable suspicion requires less evidence than probable cause, but it basically means the officer has some specific reason to believe that you're up to something. For example, police can legally stop someone who matches the description of a criminal suspect. A suspect who drops a suspicious object after seeing the police, or someone who runs away after seeing the police. Don't ever run from the police. That's part of what the officers can use for probable cause, and they'll run you down and make you regret it. But if you see police approaching, be calm and assert your rights if need be, but don't run. If they have reasonable suspicion to detain you, police may pat down the outside of your clothing to check for weapons, but only if they have a basis for suspecting that you're armed. If they feel a hard item that might be a weapon, the police may pull it out of your pocket to check it out. Police may ask you to show them what's in your pockets. Remember, you don't have to do it. Emptying your pockets is the same as consenting to a search, and you always have the right to refuse. In your case, there appeared to be no basis to justify their stop and frisk.
It happened so fast, it was over before I even knew it. What could I have done different?
You don't have a lot of immediate options here. If police detain and frisk you, you have the right to clearly state your refusal to the consent to the search.
Officer, I'm not resistant, but I do not consent to searches.
But you should only verbally refuse, never physically resist. Never. Just touching a cop could get you tasered or beaten. You could also get charged with felony assault.
Face forward.
Sometimes people get in trouble for merely standing near others holding contraband, or if it is found nearby.
Look what we have here.
Police may try to get you to snitch on yourself or on others, but remember that police may legally lie to you, so don't get tricked into waiving your rights.
We know you bought this weed. That makes you part of a drug conspiracy. Now you give up your supplier, or else we're gonna charge you as an accessory to drug trafficking.
I'm going to remain silent. I'd like to see a lawyer.
I'm going to remain silent. I'd like to see a lawyer. If you're being interrogated or you're under arrest, these magic words are your best legal protection. They're kind of like a legal condom. Say them with me.
I'm going to remain silent. I'd like to see a lawyer.
I seen you drop this, man. Just admit it's yours. It's a slap on the wrist. You make things difficult for me, and I'll charge you with possession and evidence tampering. That's a felony.
Don't get tricked. You know what to say. If police pressure you to snitch, you need a lawyer. Use the magic words.
Officer, I'm going to remain silent. I'd like to see a lawyer.
But remember, just because you ask for a lawyer doesn't mean they have to stop questioning you. If you keep talking, your words might still be used against you, so shut your mouth until you've seen a lawyer.
But when do you actually get a lawyer?
That depends. If you keep your mouth shut, you might not even need one, but if you're arrested and charged with a crime, you need help. If you can't afford a lawyer, one will be appointed for you by the court. The point is that you can't talk your way out of a police interrogation without a lawyer. That's a big mistake. Almost anything you say to the police can and will be used against you in court.
But what if the police try to make you sign a confession or something?
Don't sign anything without a lawyer, and don't rely on the police to explain what it says. Read it for yourself. Usually, the only document that's safe to sign is a promise to appear in court.
What if police come up to me just asking for ID?
Hey, hold up, man. Let me see your ID.
Carrying an ID is required when you're driving, but there's otherwise no law requiring you to carry an ID. But in some states, police can require you to give your name if they have reasonable suspicion to believe you're involved in criminal activity.
How do you know if police have reasonable suspicion?
Remember, police need reasonable suspicion to detain you. So one way to tell if they have reasonable suspicion is to ask if you're free to go.
Hey, hold up, man. Let me see your ID.
Excuse me, officer. Are you detaining me or am I free to go?
Just want to talk to you, man. What's your name?
Are you detaining me or am I free to go?
I'm not detaining you, man, but...
I promise I'm clean.
What's your
Don't
rush,
got time
man?
to chat. Gotta go.
What if they don't let me go?
Then you're being detained because the officer thinks there's some reason to suspect you of a crime.
Let's see some ID.
Excuse me, officer. Are you detaining me or am I free to go?
Turn around, put your hands up on the wall.
In that situation, you could be arrested if you refuse to reveal your identity. Technically, police can't make you identify yourself anytime they want. But on the street, withholding your identity frequently leads to a detention or even an arrest. If your goal is to just get the encounter over with, then identifying yourself might be your best option. But if you're prepared to fight things out in court, you can flex your rights by refusing to cooperate with random ID requests.
You say those police broke the rules, searching me like that? What am I supposed to do? Call the cops on them?
Listen, fighting back against police misconduct is never easy, but it gets easier if you know your rights and if you act appropriately.
What do I do? File a complaint? Does anyone read those?
Oh yeah, they read them for sure. There are lots of bad cops who are off the streets because they get too many complaints. Cases of severe police misconduct can result in major lawsuits that change the way the police behave. I know that because I filed my share of them successfully. Here's what you need to know about reporting police misconduct. During the encounter, pay close attention to details. Remember the order of events. Remember as much as you can about the officers. What did they look like? What were their names? What were their badge numbers? Although you should never ask them for their badge number, that means to them you're about to make a complaint, and boy, does it get bad for you if they know that. So never tell them you're going to make a complaint against them. Remember the exact words that the officer says.
Where's the dope?
I ain't got nothing.
Come on, man, give it up.
As soon as you can, get everybody together who saw or heard anything about the incident. Sit down with them together. Listen to their recollections. Use whatever device you can to collect your thoughts. The longer you wait, the less you will remember.
There's a black cop and a white cop.
Put him on the car.
And try to find other witnesses if you can. You'll need this evidence later.
Reaching in the bag, man.
If you were injured during a police incident, make sure somebody photographs you at your worst as soon as possible. Make copies of any relevant hospital records. If you're thinking about responding to a police misconduct incident, visit flexyourrights.org to learn more about your options. Don't be discouraged just because you've heard about police abusing their power and getting away with it. Now that you know your rights, you've got more power to demand accountability. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Murphy, is it legal for the police to go around knocking on people's doors, asking to search?
Unfortunately, yes. Did something happen?
It was last Saturday afternoon. I was in my home relaxing after a long week.
Have you been in an accident? Injured on the job? You need a lawyer with experience, integrity, and a commitment to you, the citizen of this great nation. Call me, Boris Krakowitzki.
Who is it?
Police department.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Officer Smith. What's your name?
I'm Karen Stewart. Everything all right? How can I help you?
Miss Stewart, do you mind if we come in for a moment?
1 second.
Me and Officer Jones here are introducing ourselves to the tenants as part of a new home safety program. We're available if you need any help. Miss Stewart, are you here alone?
Yes. My granddaughter lives here too, but she's at school.
I'm sure you know there's been some gang-related shootings in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're trying to do something to get the guns off the streets, and we're asking folks to help out.
Of course. How can I help?
Well, if you don't mind, we'll take a quick look around to make sure there's no guns in your home you might not know about.
There are no guns in here. Go ahead.
Great. Just sign this form for me, please. I appreciate your cooperation. Miss Stewart, I see you have an extensive book collection. You like to read a lot?
Oh, I love to read. I'm always reading something.
Oh, okay. I love to read too, but between my job and my 2 children, I just don't have the time anymore.
I understand that.
So you say your granddaughter is in school? College?
Yes, She's a freshman.
Oh, wonderful.
Ma'am, I'm gonna search this couch here. You mind stepping up for me? Uh-oh. What's this? Can you tell me about this marijuana I just found on your couch?
What's that?
Don't play dumb. You know what it is.
It isn't mine. I cook for some of the children in the neighborhood. Somebody probably left it there by mistake. I don't know.
You really ought to pay more attention to what happens in your home.
Miss Stewart, I appreciate your cooperation. I hate to do this. Please put your hands behind your back. You're under arrest.
Under arrest? What are you arresting me for? I don't know. It isn't mine.
Miss Stewart, I'm taking you to the station. You can tell your story to the judge.
Turn to your right.
You don't have to do this. No, stop. Stop. The worst part is I live in public housing and there's a zero tolerance rule. I'm fighting the eviction order now.
Did you all hear that, folks? Remember that the next time somebody tells you nobody ever gets in trouble for weed.
I shouldn't have let them inside.
See, this is how they get you. Police come knocking at your door saying, "Hey there, we've got a new safety program. Can we search your home?" Hell no. You don't have to let them in. Even if the police have probable cause, the Fourth Amendment requires them to get a signed search warrant from a judge to enter and search your home. Unless there's a serious emergency, they can't come in without a search warrant. But they don't need a warrant if you invite them in. When the officers came knocking, Karen could have talked to them outside and closed the door behind her.
Good afternoon, officers. How can I help you?
The chain lock works fine, too.
Who is it?
Police department.
Good afternoon, officers. How can I help you?
Hi, ma'am. Do you mind if we come in for a moment?
Do you have a warrant? What is this about?
No, my name is Officer Smith. This is Officer Jones.
We're introducing ourselves to the tenants as part of a new home safety program. Mind if we come in?
No, thank you. I can't let you in without a warrant.
Again.
I can't let you in without a warrant.
That is your decision, ma'am. But this is just a public safety check. We're not here to get anyone in trouble.
I understand, but I need to see a warrant before letting you folks inside.
Well, ma'am, you have my card if you need anything. Have a nice day.
Take care.
We're clear.
If police come to your door and you don't need their help, you may simply decline to answer the door. Because you don't have to let them in unless they have a search warrant. We've covered a lot today, but we've only scratched the surface. If you want to learn about the 10 rules for dealing with police, contact us at the website, flexyourrights.org. Any more questions?
Okay. In respect of time, we're going to take a couple more questions, and maybe a couple from the audience. If you're stopped on the street and the police ask for ID, do you have to provide it?
Yeah, this kind of goes to what we were talking about earlier about IDing yourself. There's no specific law in West Virginia that would require you to provide identification, but again, non-compliance with that request could open you up to being charged with obstruction. And again, the reason for the stop needs to be constitutional in the first place for that to stick. But generally, yes, it's best practice to go ahead and identify yourself to law enforcement.
One of the things from the police perspective that they ask for IDs, and it may be a little confusing why the police, the focus on getting identification. And one reason is they're driven by these databases. And if you think that you may not be in a database, if you don't pay a fine in court, you don't show up for a court date or something like that, you end up being you're actually wanted. There's a court warrant issued, and if the police find out that you're wanted, then they can arrest you on the warrant, but then search incident to an arrest. So it's a tactic, again, from the law enforcement perspective to do this.
Is there any law which requires the police to have a body cam or when to turn the body cam on and off?
Excuse me, no. Generally, body cams are policies. It may be in Morgantown, it may not be in Charleston, it may be in Charleston, it may not be in Morgantown, but there is no law requiring body cams. Most hide behind the fact that they can't afford it. And or what commonly will happen, I think a body cam is there for two purposes: to protect the citizen and to protect the police. And if they have a body cam, is there to serve a purpose for both individuals. I wish they would all use a body cam, quite frankly. I think a body cam also hastens them doing something improperly, because they are being recorded and you are being recorded, and I wish they all would wear a body cam and or a dash cam. The interesting question becomes, and Jim will comment on it, the interesting question becomes, why the hell did you turn it off?
And that's a good question. And also, we saw recently the case in Memphis, Tyree Nichols. The officers who beat Tyree Nichols gave 77 commands in 13 minutes, all recorded on body cam. And so and these were conflicting commands. And so you wonder why the officers are giving so many conflicting commands, like, stay down, get up, turn this way, turn that way, and all these things. And my interpretation of it is this, is that they weren't really speaking to Nichols, they were speaking to witnesses. And I think that although ostensibly the police are using body cams for their own protection and protections of the people they're interacting with, there's also a sort of a gaming that goes on with this. And so where the officers are not just going to rely on what's on the body cam, they're going to be telling you or a jury what they're going to see. Please, sir, stop. Please put your hands behind your back, and that sort of thing. And so we hope that most of these cases are legitimate use of the body cam footage, but also it speaks to why this type of a thing is so important, because if they're recording you refusing to give consent to a search, you refusing to, or asking, am I free to leave? That all gets recorded, and that's really important.
If you are arrested, do you have the right to ask for the basis for the arrest? Must the officer tell you?
Generally, the answer is yes. An officer needs to tell you why you're being arrested. They don't have to give you the basis of the probable cause that existed to effectuate the arrest. But generally, yes, they need to tell you, and that'll certainly be on the booking paperwork as well.
I don't necessarily know the answer to this, but a lot of times the officers come from a perspective, we'll tell you when things calm down, or we get you through the, we don't have to tell you immediately. Just because you ask me right now doesn't mean I have to tell you right now, but eventually they have to certainly tell you.
And one other thing there, they don't have to tell you every single charge you're being charged with. So just one will probably work, but usually they're going to try to attach as many charges as they possibly can in a way to make plea bargaining easier, or to, yeah, that's at least my experience with clients who have been charged with one thing, and then you find out that they've been indicted on several charges.
Under what circumstances can the police enter a home without a warrant?
What was the question?
Under what circumstances can the police enter a home without a warrant?
generally is what we call under law exigent circumstances. Exigent circumstances is, for example, a robbery took place. So-and-so was described as 6 foot tall, wearing a red jacket, and it appears, as someone said, I think he went in that house over there. Well, he or she may not have gone in that house over there, but the circumstances dictate that they're in hot pursuit, another term, hot pursuit, and that they may enter into your premises. Another example may be where they may enter your home without a warrant is the plain view doctrine. They see something, it might be through a window. Oh, I see Jimmy in there beating the hell out of Susie. Or it's the plain view doctrine where you don't have to have a warrant, which again is exigent circumstances. I see it. Oh, I heard voices sound like someone screaming. Okay, that gives rise to, I have a duty as a police officer to investigate this further. So there are circumstances where a police officer does not need a warrant to enter into your premises.
What the police tend to do is, I mean, I refer to it sometimes as a game. You know, so the game that they play is they know about plain view. So they know that if they are able to step into the house, they have lawful entry. And then once they have lawful entry, then what they see, they could be looking for something illegal, you know, drug paraphernalia or something like that. And then if they see something illegal, then they can do what the officers in the video did. They can seize it. But then I think to conduct a full search of the house requires to stop where you are, contain the house, and go get a search warrant.
I'll just briefly mention that this isn't exigent circumstances or exceptions to the warrant requirement, but if you're presented with a warrant, that warrant needs to have certain elements to be upheld. It needs to be supported by probable cause. It needs to be signed by a neutral magistrate or judge. And it has to describe with particularity the items and locations of a home that is going to be searched. And if all of those are present, then the warrant is probably lawful. But it's just important to keep that in mind, that not all warrants have those elements, and it's important to be able to review the warrant if you're ever on the receiving end of that.
So right now we're going to leave it open. It is 8 p.m. We want to give a few minutes for any questions from the audience that you may have. So if you have any questions, please come forward. We want to honor your question before we wrap up and close out this evening.
If you feel like your rights is being, violated, who do you contact immediately, and where can you go to? I mean, let's say it happens at a little bit after midnight. Who can you go to right there and then, whether it's the police station or just choke it up and call your lawyer in the morning?
That's an interesting question. They say most crimes happen after 12 o'clock. And so where do you go if you feel that you have been mistreated, harmed, etc.? Unfortunately, other than an edifice such as this, go pray, you're going to have to wait until 8 or 9 o'clock the next day to call a lawyer. You also have a right to file a complaint. You can go back to the same police station and ask for the documentation if you want to file a complaint, if that's what you so choose. I would suggest to you that you'd be better off going to seeking legal representation and that you and the lawyer draft a legal complaint. But if this happens at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning, hopefully you have not been harmed physically, that you can go in the next day during working hours. But other than finding a support system, that people that you can talk to, people that you trust, because you got to be careful because those people that you talk to could then be compelled to testify against you. So I would recommend that, take a deep breath, hopefully you're not hurt, and then start calling an attorney, the ACLU or others.
I'll just say, like, random plug for the ACLU, you can always reach out to us, but it's important to also know that, if this were to happen, your options may be limited, but this is where it's important to try and write down everything you can remember, try to record it. I think the gentleman is using a voice recorder on the video, but trying to remember as much detail as you can, photographing any injuries or anything like that. That's where that comes in, and then the next morning, that's when you can reach out to, legal resources.
Are there any more questions? Well, if not, we want to thank everyone for coming this evening. I don't know about you, but I've learned a lot, and you've learned it firsthand from Dr. Nolan and from Nick and from Attorney Tucker. It has been amazing, the amount of knowledge that has been shared tonight, and I hope that everyone takes that knowledge to heart and you share it with someone. Let someone know about this video. It is on YouTube. Watch it. Write those rights down so that you know them, so that the next time, peradventure you find yourself in this situation, this seminar will come back to you and you will know exactly what to do. You will be armed with the knowledge and empowered to make the right decisions in those critical moments. I want to thank our panelists tonight. Let's give them a hand clap. Just on behalf of the NAACP, we truly appreciate not only your knowledge, but the work that the three of you do. We thank you for taking the time to share with us this evening. I know that our Criminal Justice Committee has been working a long time to put this together, and I pray that this won't be the last time that we see each other, because what was shared tonight, many more students need to hear, and many more people in the community need to know firsthand what to do in those situations so that we can have better outcomes, so that lives can be spared, so that people are not injured. So we truly appreciate you for just stopping by here and sharing with us this evening. And again, I thank you for coming. I want to thank Pastor Zach for opening up his church. He's up in the balcony working. We truly appreciate you. Let's give him a hand clap. We thank you for opening up your church and working with us. He immediately said yes. I thank you for your work in the community, the wonderful things that this church provides to the city of Morgantown. We appreciate you greatly, and hopefully we can have a working relationship going forward. We can connect and continue to empower the cities of Morgantown. But I thank you so much for opening up and allowing us to come and share with the citizens of Morgantown this seminar. I want to thank PAC. They're in the back. If you've seen them come in, for the last year, our branch has partnered with the Partnership of African American Churches, and we have been working with them to bring awareness to a lot of disparities that have affected minority populations. And we teamed up with them today. They came up to offer free COVID testing as well as vaccination and booster. I know that the records say that the numbers are down, but there's also a decrease in testing. So be encouraged to continue to stay up on your boosters, stay up on your vaccinations. But I thank them for coming all the way from Charleston. Let's give them a hand clap. As we go forward, you'll see a lot more of them as we continue to have events in the community. We want to always make sure that we have those resources available to the public, vaccinations and boosters as well as COVID testing. So I thank them. And on the back table as you leave, please take some of that information on the table. It's so much information that PAC has gathered about COVID and how it has affected our bodies, whether it's heart, kidneys. There's so much information back there. Please stop by the table table and pick up some information. We also have some refreshments in the back. Please stop by that table and take those refreshments home with you. Get a cup of coffee, get a snack to go. But we thank you all. I want to give a tremendous shout out to our Criminal Justice Committee, who puts in a lot of work, a lot of hours, dealing with a lot of circumstances and situations that go on in the city of Morgantown. I applaud you for the hard work that you have put in to have this event tonight. Let's just give them a hand clap. And we just appreciate each one of you for coming out on tonight. I hope that you enjoyed yourself, and we hope that we will see you again at our next event. Before you leave, introduce yourself to someone that you don't know. And again, I want to thank our lovely panelists for a wonderful evening. You guys have a good night and be safe.